Joe Hopkins here. If you read the title there, how many do you need? Now, it says budget guitars, because on this channel, mostly, I talk about budget guitars. This relates to any guitars. I mean, if you have the money and you want to spend a bunch of money, then yeah, it doesn't have to be budget guitars. But me and most of the people who follow my channel, we're broke. We don't have that kind of money. So if we want multiple guitars, we want to get good deals on them. And to be honest with you, even people who do have money, a lot of times I would recommend, if there's specialty things you need and you can get them cheaper, get them cheaper, especially if it's something you're not going to use a lot. But here's the thing. Not how many do you want, right? How many do you need? We need all of them. No, we want all of them. But how many guitars you legitimately need depends on what you're doing. If you want more, by all means, buy as many as you want. Collect them. It's awesome. It's a fun thing to do, but some people do have needs. For instance, if you're just noodling around, you're learning the guitar, you're just having fun, it's not something that's going anywhere, or not yet anyway, and you just want to learn the guitar. One guitar is fine, right? Maybe you want some others, but at first, everybody starts with one, right? That's where we all start. And usually we start with an acoustic guitar. Now, how many guitars do you need? It would be good, I would recommend, even people that primarily play electric, to own at least one acoustic guitar. Mostly because it's so much easier for practicing. You set it there, you can just pick it up, play it, you don't have to plug anything in, it's self-contained. You just, do like I do, put a pick in your string there, and it's just there, right? You have a guitar. But even with acoustic guitars, how many do you need, right? Well, if you play classical guitar, you probably want a classical guitar. If you play, country or rock or any type of singer-songwriter stuff, or almost everything else, a classical is fine, or a steel string. A lot of us want a nice steel string guitar. I only had a classical guitar. Well, I had two classical guitars for a long time, and then finally realized I really do need a steel string guitar, right? I love the way classicals sound, but I needed one. Or you can get a 12-string guitar. I have a 12-string acoustic. I have a couple resonator guitars. And that's if you like the way they sound, if you like the way they look, or like me, if you do a lot of different styles of music and a lot of different things, and you need that for the things you're doing. For instance, like I said, I had classical guitars when I was mostly doing classical and folk music. And the more I got into recording, the more I realized I needed other sounds. So I got a steel string guitar, I got a 12-string acoustic. If, like me, you're doing multiple things, you might need multiple guitars. And of course, I've had two classicals, because my wife and I would play duets, but also when we would go to play gigs, the one was our primary gig guitar. It's the one we usually took with us when we were doing gigs, which is another thing to consider. If you're doing gigs, do you want to have one guitar that you practice at home with and take to gigs, or do you want a guitar that's dedicated for gigging? One that is going to get beat up, and a really nice one at home that you kind of take care of. That's one of the questions you have to ask yourself, right? That's just with acoustics. There are reasons why you might need multiple guitars. Once again, if you play gigs, you might have songs with multiple tunings. You might have 2 or 3 different songs where the guitars are tuned differently, and you need to bring 2 or 3 guitars, or get really quick at retuning on stage. And a lot of professionals do that. They'll have a line of guitars. If you've ever seen a Kim Thal from Soundgarden playing, you'll see there's a couple guitars setting behind him. It's because they wrote songs in different tunings. And it's easier to just have a couple guitars that are each tuned to their specific tunings to use for those songs. It's easier than it is to change your tuning on one guitar on stage, to retune the whole time. And there are other reasons to own multiple guitars. Let's see what I got here. You got an electric guitar. Now this is my Harley Benton. This is a pretty versatile guitar. It's got dual humbuckers. It's got a push-pull pot right there for coil splitting, so you can make them single coils. You can get single coil sounds, and it's got a Floyd Rose tremolo. Makes it a pain in the ass to tune, right? Anybody that has a Floyd Rose knows that. But at the same time, you can do things with this tremolo that you can't do without this tremolo. So, you know, this would be a good all-around guitar. If you were looking for like one electric guitar that can do a lot, you got humbuckers, you got single coil, you've got a tremolo that you can use or not use. If you don't want that sound, you don't have to have it, but if you want to get some tremolo stuff, you can. Excellent all-around guitar. But, you know, a lot of times you really can get different sounds now from other guitars. Now, once again, I record. I've been recording stuff for years, so I've ended up with a collection of guitars because sometimes you need more guitars. I know one of the first things I bought when I started recording was a bass guitar because I didn't have one, and you need one when you're recording stuff. And later I bought a 5-string bass because I started doing heavier music and you want to get lower sounds and you don't necessarily want to detune, you know, go to drop tunings all the time, and a 5-string is excellent for that. Speaking of lower tunings, a 7-string. If you want to get into deeper, darker sounds, it can be good to get a 7-string because to do what this does with a 6-string guitar, you have to detune or drop tune or something. It's sometimes quite a bit. It changes the way it feels. It changes the way it sounds. A lot of times that changes the intonation on a guitar. It's nice to have a 7-string where you can have the whole thing set up, intonation and everything with that low B string to get those lower sounds if you want to do heavier songs. Now, I bought that 5-string bass at the same time that I bought my first 7-string. And the reason was this goes down to a B string and so does the bass. It's real good. I wanted to get into heavier sounds. I wanted to get into lower tunings and stuff like that. Great way to do that kind of thing, right? That can be a need if you're changing what you're doing or adding to what you're doing, right? There can be other needs for multiple guitars. If, let's say, you're used to playing metal and you've got, you know, your dual humbucker guitar and it's nice and chunky, and then you change the type of sound you do. Let's say you join a country band. You might actually need a Telecaster. Well, sort of, it would be helpful to have one. The reason why, I've seen lots of country artists play Les Pauls and SGs, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you don't get the same kind of twangy, plucky sound as you do on a Telecaster with this bridge pickup, especially the ones that actually have that metal surround on it. This type of bridge pickup, it just sounds different even than other single coils. It gets that twangy country sound. So that's why I bought a Telecaster. I was also recording a lot of country stuff at the time. These are really good for blues too. If you look, a lot of the early blues musicians owned Telecasters. I mean, even Jimmy Page started out on a Telecaster. And, you know, you get kind of that type of sound, especially with crunch on it. You can get a very bluesy, blues rock tone with a Tele that you can't quite get that same tone with other guitars, right? But there are reasons. There are reasons to own multiple guitars other than I just want them. And I want them is a great reason. I've got another one here. I've got my Hard Luck King's Bombshell. It's a Strat style guitar. It's good to own a Stratocaster because you can get sounds on a Strat that you can't get on other guitars, especially when you have it on the bridge and middle or neck and middle positions. Those types of positions because, you know, you've got 3 pickups, so you have different sorts of selections there, right? A 2 pickup guitar, it's either, you know, neck, bridge, or both. But with this, you can add that middle pickup in, and it does give it a different kind of sound. If you want the kind of sound that Hendrix got, or you want the kind of sound that Stevie Ray Vaughan was getting out of his guitar, a lot of times they were incorporating that middle pickup, and it kind of gives it a sort of quacky sound. They call it quacky. I don't know. I don't really hear that in it, but that's what they call it. But it gets that particular sound that those guys got that you can't really get without a Strat style guitar, right? It doesn't have to be a Strat, but a Strat style guitar, or at least the 3 3 single coil configuration, right? You can get the same kind of thing. They got those Brian May guitars, right? Brian May from Queen. They do like a copy of his Red Special, but they sell it in other colors too. And it's got 3 single coil pickups. The cool thing about that though, and I'd love to get one of his guitars for that reason, it has switches where you can select the pickups individually. So unlike the 5-way selector switch, you can actually have like just the neck and bridge, or, you know, all 3, stuff like that. And it's got switches to put them in and out of phase, I think it is. I think that's what it is, but it has other options on it that does stuff that your standard 3 single coil pickup guitar doesn't do. But the main thing is, if you want different sounds, you need different guitars. And the question you have to ask yourself is, do I need different sounds? What different sounds do I need, right? I try to get guitars that do different things for that reason. Because I've played with different styles of music, and I've gigged with different styles of music, and I record a lot of different styles of music, I find myself in this position where I actually kind of need a bunch of guitars. I sort of need a different sound. If I'm doing metal, I'm going to use like maybe the 7-string, or you know, my SG, or one of the Les Paul style guitars. If I'm doing blues or country, I might go with a Strat or a Tele, that kind of thing, you know? And it's also good to have different guitars when you're recording, because a lot of times you want to do several guitar parts, you know? Do 2 guitar parts and pan them left and right. And I do that kind of thing a lot, and I'll use one guitar for one side and another guitar for the other side, so it gives it a little more separation, you know? Some people don't, and I've done it before where I literally will play both parts on the same guitar the same way with the same amp settings and just separate them, and it gives it the sound like it's one guitar, but it's bigger, you know? But a lot of times I like using different guitars because I'm playing slightly different parts, and I really want them to stand out from each other. So if you get into recording, it's good to have multiple guitars. And this is the kind of thing where if you're recording and you're doing that kind of music, it's kind of a need. If you do different kinds of gigs, you're going to have different needs depending on what those gigs are. And some people, and I know quite a few of them, they'll do folk music and then they'll play with a rock band sometimes, and then they'll sit in on blues gigs sometimes, and you kind of need different guitars for those different things. Obviously, folk, you're going to play more acoustic. You play with, let's say you play with a country band, it might be acoustic, it might be electric. You're playing with a rock band, it's probably an electric guitar. If you're playing metal, it's probably going to be an electric guitar, but tuned a little bit differently, a 7-string or drop tuned or something like that. And you're going to want different guitars for those sorts of things. And to be honest with you, I would recommend for you musicians out there, try different kinds of music. Try recording different types of music. Get into new things and see if you can develop a need for a new guitar. It's a good way to explain it to the spouse, right? You know, hey, I need a new guitar because, well, hey, honey, I'm getting into country. I really need a new Telecaster because that's a country guitar, right? It doesn't have to be. I've found you can play anything on anything, and sometimes you get really cool sounds out of it. It's also good to experiment with different kinds of guitars to really find what it is you like. A lot of times people have the one guitar and they think that's what they like until they try something else. It's another nice thing about music stores. If you want to, you know, if you can go to a music store that sells guitars and try some different things and see what you like. Sometimes it might surprise you what sounds you get out of what. Because, you know, we think traditional ideas, and I've been going over some of those traditional ideas, like, you know, Strat for country, a Tele for country, a Strat for blues, you know, you want like a Les Paul for rock, that kind of thing. But that's not always the case, and I've recorded all kinds of stuff with guitars that you wouldn't associate with that genre, because it can be fun and you can get some cool sounds out of those kinds of things. And then there is one other reason why you might need more guitars. And that's if you do what I do. If you have a YouTube channel where you review guitars. And, you know, partly why I got into this and why some of you guys might want to is because I was watching review channels because I was looking at buying some more guitars. I'm trying to decide, what do I want to buy? And I realized something. I'm looking at their view counts. At first, it was years ago. It was Max Carlisle, like Guitar Max, when his channel was pretty early still. And I was watching his channel, looking at the different guitar reviews, and I realized, hey, wait a minute, I think he might be getting enough money from this, from the view count, to pay for the guitars. I'm like, I'd like that. I'd like to collect guitars and have YouTube pay for it. So here's a suggestion. For any of you guys out there that want to try or would like to have a bunch of guitars like that, see if you can start doing that, right? You buy the first couple, review them on the YouTube here, and see if you can build something, right? Worst comes to worst, it doesn't go anywhere. Best case scenario, you become a guitar collector by default, because I have to buy guitars to review them for you. And I've gotten to the point where YouTube is more or less paying for it. So, you know, that's pretty awesome. I'd love it if more of you guys subscribed, because then maybe I could get to where YouTube could, you know, buy better guitars for me. Right now I'm going with the cheapest of the cheap, because that's the money I'm making at this, right? It's not a lot of money, but it's enough to buy something. And I'm hoping to get to the point where I can buy more guitars more often, review them more often for you. That would be awesome. And maybe you guys can do it too. So anyway, that's some reasons why you might need more guitars. Or maybe you just want them. In which case, at the end here, there's an end screen. There's some playlists come up. Check out my reviews playlist, because I review a bunch of guitars. And if you guys want to know if they're any good, if this guitar or that guitar you're shopping around, watch my reviews playlist. Go down through it. See if there's something that catches your eye. It'll give you an idea of, do I want to buy a guitar from this brand, or would this be a good guitar for me? And if you want to hear some of the songs I recorded with my many, many guitars, I think I've recorded with almost all of them. There's a songs playlist, and you can listen to the songs. And I'll see you guys in the next video, all right? I love you guys. Peace out, baby. Bye-bye.